You check your account at 11:52 on a Tuesday night. Out of habit, not worry. $14,300. 3 months and change of everything you'd need if the world stopped tomorrow. Rent, food, insurance, gas. You didn't check because something felt wrong. You checked because checking used to feel wrong. And now it's just a number that sits there being calm. Your phone buzzes. Your brother. Not a text. A call, at midnight, which he never does. You already know before you answer that something happened. You're right. It just isn't happening to him. It's happening to both of you. Same layoff email, sent to an entire department at 4:47 that afternoon. Forwarded to you by a coworker before HR even finished the meeting. Logistics has been bleeding jobs all year. Automation, contract losses, the kind of quiet layoff wave that doesn't make headlines but empties a floor anyway. You and your brother worked at the same company. Different floors, same building, same morning commute for 6 years, same salary within a few $1,000s of each other. 2 names on the same list. Almost 6 in 10 Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency out of savings this year if you asked them tonight. Most of them aren't reckless. Most of them just never had a reason to find out which side of that number they were on, until a night like this one picks the reason for them. You're not panicking. He is. And the gap between those two reactions didn't start tonight. It started 11 years ago, with $40 a week, and a decision nobody noticed you make. This is the story of how identical paychecks built 2 completely different lives, and how the difference never showed up until the one night it mattered more than anything else ever had. Rewind. You're 23. Both of you are. 11 months apart, closer than most siblings, close enough that people used to ask if you were twins. Same college, different majors, same first job at the same logistics company because he got hired first and put in a word for you. Same starting salary. $46,000. The first paycheck hits both your accounts on a Friday. You go out that night. Both of you. He orders the steak. You order the burger. Neither of you thinks anything of it. It's a Friday. It's a first paycheck. It's supposed to feel like something. The difference starts on Monday. You open your banking app on your lunch break and set up an automatic transfer. $40 a week, out of checking, into a separate savings account you name Don't Touch. It takes 4 minutes. You don't tell him. You don't tell anyone. It isn't a plan. It isn't even really a decision. You read something the week before, some article about how most Americans can't cover a $1,000 surprise, and the sentence stuck to you the way certain sentences do, for no reason you can explain. You didn't want to be a statistic in an article you'd already forgotten by Wednesday. $40 a week is $160 a month. It's a nothing number. It's 2 dinners out. It's the difference between the cheap headphones and the good ones. You don't feel it leave. That's the part that matters. It's small enough to not fight. Your brother doesn't set up a transfer. Your brother doesn't do anything wrong either. He pays his rent. He pays his bills. He's not reckless. He just doesn't have a don't touch account, because nobody ever told either of you that you needed one, and you only know because you happened to read one article on one Tuesday that he happened not to read. That's the whole difference at the start. One article. 4 minutes. $40. You're 24. The account has $2,240 in it, give or take, because some weeks you moved it to $50, some weeks back down to $30 when things were tight. You don't check it often. It isn't exciting. It doesn't do anything. It just sits. Your brother buys a car. Not reckless, just newer than yours, financed over 5 years at a payment that fits his budget the way a budget fits when you've never stress-tested it. You ride in it. It smells new. He's proud of it. And he should be. He worked hard. He earned it. Nobody's the villain in this story yet. He asks why you still drive the Civic. You say you like it. That's true. But it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is the $40 a week would become $30 a week if you took on a car payment. And something in you doesn't want to find out what $30 a week feels like after knowing $40. You don't say that part. It would sound strange out loud. It sounds strange to you too, a little, some nights. You're 26. You get a raise that spring, not a big one, enough that your paycheck finally has a little room in it that didn't exist before. You do the obvious thing and the boring thing at the same time. You bump the transfer from $40 a week to $60. You don't feel the extra $20 leave any more than you felt the original $40. That's the actual trick, if there is one. You raise the number exactly when it stops hurting, not before. The account crosses $8,000 not long after. You know the exact number because your car needs new brakes and a sensor, $640. And for the first time in your adult life, a repair bill doesn't rearrange your month. You pay it. You don't think about it again. You don't post about it, mention it, or feel anything you'd call pride. It's just a Tuesday where nothing bad happened to you, which is a strange thing to notice as a milestone, but it is one. Your brother's transmission goes the same year, $2,200. He puts it on a card, not because he's careless, because he genuinely doesn't have $2,200 sitting anywhere that isn't already spoken for by rent, the car payment, and the fact that his paycheck, like most people's, is gone by the time the next one arrives. He pays it off over 8 months, $275 a month, plus interest, on top of everything else already stretching his check thin. You don't know the interest rate. You don't ask. You just notice he's a little quieter about money that year. And you don't say anything, because there's nothing to say that wouldn't sound like gloating, even if you didn't mean it that way. You're 28. This is the year nobody warns you about. The flat middle, where the fun stops feeling like progress and starts feeling like nothing at all. You get promoted that year, a real bump this time, and you push the transfer again, $60 a week to $85. You also start doing something small every spring you never used to bother with. The $700 or so that comes back at tax time doesn't go to a trip or a TV. It goes straight into the same account, the same day it lands, before you can decide it should go anywhere else. $19,000 sits in an account that pays you almost nothing in interest, because you opened it at 23 without knowing the difference between a regular savings account and a high-yield one. You find out later, years later, that you left real money on the table simply by not knowing a term existed. Nobody teaches you these things. You just have to trip over them. Meanwhile, your friends are buying houses, getting engaged, posting the kind of milestones that get 40 replies in a group chat. You have a number in an app that nobody claps for. There's no ring, no photo, no keys in hand. Just $19,000 doing nothing you can point to. One night, you almost move $8,000 of it into a brokerage account, chasing better returns, because a friend at work won't stop talking about the stock he's up 60% on this year. You open the transfer screen. Your thumb sits over the button for a long time. You don't press it. Not because you're smarter than him, because something in you says an emergency fund that you can't touch for 6 months to chase a gain isn't an emergency fund anymore. It's just money you're gambling with a different label on it. You close the app. The number stays where it is. Boring. Untouched. Waiting for a reason to exist that you can't yet see. You're 30. The number is $31,000. You've stopped watching it grow. It just grows. Your brother gets married that spring. Beautiful wedding. More than either of you can really afford. Paid partly on a card that's still not paid off 18 months later. You don't judge him for it. It's his wedding, it's one day. Everyone said it was worth it. You believe them. You believed it too, a little. Standing there in a rented tux, watching him look happier than you'd seen him in years. At the reception, an uncle asks you when you're going to catch up to your brother. House, wedding, the whole picture. You say you're doing fine. The uncle laughs, not unkindly, the way people laugh at an answer they've already decided isn't good enough. You go back to your seat. You don't defend yourself. There's nothing to defend that would make sense to someone at a wedding holding a glass of champagne. You drive home that night, thinking about the number in the account nobody at that wedding knows exists. It doesn't make you feel superior. It makes you feel invisible, actually, which is its own strange kind of lonely. You're 31. A friend from college posts a number of her own, not a savings number, a different kind, the kind that spreads through a group chat with fire emojis attached. She quit her job to follow a sign, some course, some group, some guy online explaining how he did it in 6 months. Everyone comments. You watch it happen from a distance, half tempted, tired the way everyone eventually gets tired of the slow version of anything. You don't buy the course. You don't message the guy. You just close the app and go back to whatever you were doing, which that particular night happened to be nothing more exciting than paying your electric bill on time. 8 months later, she's back at a job, quieter about the whole thing. The group chat's already moved on to someone else's excitement. You never bring it up. There's no version of bringing it up that doesn't sound cruel, and you didn't do anything she couldn't have done. You just didn't buy the feeling of finding a shortcut. You kept doing the boring thing instead. You're 32, $44,000, 4 months of expenses, maybe 5 if you cut back. You've upgraded the account itself by now, moved it into something that actually pays you a real rate, closer to 4%, after finally reading the fine print you should have read 9 years earlier. The interest alone now covers your phone bill, and then some, without you touching a dollar of the principal. You push the transfer one last time that year, $85 a week to $110, because the raises kept coming and the number never got smaller, only the gap between what you earned and what you needed to live on. Your brother calls you that year, once, on a random Thursday. Not an emergency, just a conversation. He mentions, almost offhand, that he and his wife have about $3,000 saved for stuff, on top of whatever's in his 401k that he can't touch without a penalty anyway. He says it easily, not embarrassed, because $3,000 sounds like a real number when you've never had to test it against a real crisis. You don't correct him. You don't tell him the number in your account. It isn't a secret exactly. It's just never come up. And some quiet part of you has learned that the number changes how people look at you, and you'd rather they just look at you the way they always have. You're 34. This is the night. Same layoff, same afternoon, same company, 2 floors apart. He calls you at midnight. His voice is doing the thing voices do when someone's trying very hard to sound like they're not panicking. He says the word severance like it's a life raft. 2 weeks of pay, gone in a month, once you count the mortgage, the car payment, the credit card minimum that's been climbing quietly for years, the wedding debt that never fully went away, just got smaller, and then got company. He asks if you're worried. You say you're not really. He goes quiet on the other end, in a way that tells you he heard something in your voice he wasn't expecting. He mentions, almost as an afterthought, that Cobra, to keep the family on health insurance, will run him close to $700 a month starting next week, the kind of number that used to be an abstraction, and is now just Tuesday. You don't lead with the number. You never do. But eventually, because he's your brother, and because midnight calls earn a certain kind of honesty, you tell him. $61,000, almost 5 months of your full expenses, sitting in an account that started at $40 a week when you were 23 and grew every time your paycheck did, plus every tax refund that never made it to your checking account, plus 4 years of real interest doing quiet work in the background. He's quiet for a long time. Then he asks the question you knew was coming, the one that isn't really a question. How? You tell him the truth, because there isn't a version of this that sounds impressive enough to lie about. It was never one number. It was $40, then $60, then $85, then $110, every raise splitting itself in half before you got used to spending the whole thing. It was tax refunds that never touched checking. It was a boring 4% account instead of one that paid nothing. None of it was dramatic on its own. You just never let yourself decide it wasn't worth doing. He doesn't say much after that. What is there to say? 11 years, $40, and the space between those two numbers is the exact space between panic and a Tuesday. The two of you don't end up in the same place after that call. That's the part nobody tells you about a moment like this. It isn't a movie ending. It doesn't resolve in one scene. He moves back in with his in-laws for 4 months, while he finds the next job, because the severance runs out before the offers come in, and pride only stretches so far when the mortgage is due. You keep your apartment. You keep your routine. You start looking for work the next morning, not because you have to that week, but because 5 months isn't forever, and the fund was never meant to be a reason to stop moving. It was meant to buy you the right to move on your own terms instead of someone else's. You find a job in 10 weeks, not your dream job. A good one, fair pay, decent people. The kind of job you can say yes to slowly instead of desperately. You never once touched the last 3 months of that fund. You didn't need to. Knowing it was there was most of the job it needed to do. Your brother finds work too. Eventually, 6 months in, a pay cut he doesn't talk about much. He starts his own $40 a week the following spring, in an account he names, half joking, half not. Never again. You don't say I told you so. There was never anything to tell. You didn't know 11 years ago what this night would look like. You just knew you didn't want to find out what it felt like without a floor under you. The gap between you and your brother was never about income. Your paychecks were nearly identical for over a decade. It wasn't intelligence or work ethic or luck, and it wasn't that he deserved a soft landing any less than you did. It was one decision at 23, repeated 52 times a year, quietly resized every time a raise came in, never announced as anything special on any single week it happened. Nobody claps for the 40th dollar. It works precisely because it never feels like it's working, until the one night it's the only thing that is. Maybe you're still deciding whether $40 a week is worth the trouble. Maybe you already started and forgot you did it. Either way, there's a version of that midnight call waiting somewhere down the road for everyone watching this. The only question left is which side of it you'll be on.